Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the 5th of December, and events press me constantly into something which I don't want to do, but essentially I'm doing it anyway. It's the Sitrep, and the events are accelerating. No, they have nothing to do with the attempt of the attack by two drones, which are jet drones, which are Tu-141 or 143 by Ukrainians trying to attack the airdrome or airport or in Engels air base and in Rizan. I mean, sadly, 3 servicemen have been killed. Both drones have been shot down. Debris basically made a little bit of the primarily superficial damage to the skin of one of the aircraft, but that's about it. But again, it's war. You can expect this all the time from Ukraine, and do not forget also the capability of many of the sleeper cells of SBU to conduct diversionary operations within Russia. So it's war. So. And but of course the effect haven't been achieved, and then of course Russia turned off the light today for huge parts of Ukraine just in case. But again, it wasn't just pure retaliation, because usually those type of strikes they are planned in advance. So but that brings us to other things which I needed to talk to you, and this recent events, well, not recent, today's events, a little bit kind of pushed me off my main line. But we still need to talk about it. And one of the major issues, of course, today is the thing which is the price cap on Russian oil. And let me start from afar, so to speak. Let me introduce into the, my universe of the constant, basically, insistence on the fact of the complete ignorance and incompetence of the Western elites. It's not like I love to do this. I don't. Fact is, I feel ashamed being a U.S. citizen and living in the United States and being represented by people who are actually won't run a 7-Eleven store and won't be able to do so. But here we are. So let me start with this. It was about 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, 2020, and I showed you this piece from the American Conservative, where Mr. Matt Purple, speaking about the Great Reset and about all those, the dreamers from the World Economic Forums, he correctly stated that our elites couldn't reset a wall outlet, let alone the global economy. And as I already stated, I agree with Matt Purple here entirely, because people who run basically West today, be them this cabal of the bureaucrats and bribe-taking personalities in Washington, D.C., or be it Brussels or whatever the capital of the European country, especially Berlin or Paris, you are talking about people who are utterly incompetent. They are ignorant to a degree which is just absolutely stunning. But since I introduced you this, let me explain what is happening right now in terms of the whole situation which is revolving around Ukraine. There is a guy, his name is Peter Doran. He's typical neocon, very badly educated, and he obviously was sanctioned by Russia because he basically spews bullshit and mostly takes his information from the Ukrainian sources. But even he, in yesterday, I believe, actually 2 days ago, in The Hill, this publication allegedly, which publishes the experts, which are not experts, he is talking about the Russian oil debacle, and look what this Mr. Doran, who would know shit from Shinola, because as you would expect from any graduate of the Russian studies field and U.S. Foreign Service nowadays, here it is. The problem is money, he's talking about, why it will be debacle for the West. Despite Russian President Vladimir Putin's brutal war against Ukraine and subsequent Western sanctions on his regime, Russia is swimming in petrol dollars. By the end of the year, the Russian Economy Ministry estimates that the country will have made a record 338 billion from its energy exports. This money supports the Russian economy, buys its current account, and less directly helps to finance Putin's war against Ukraine. Well, he is both right and wrong. And the reason he is wrong, obviously, in his assessment is because he doesn't understand the main fundamental thing what Russia has. Russia steadily is becoming the basically independent, sovereign issuer of the currency. Russia can produce rubles. And again, that is why there was so much talk about Russian constitution, where Russian basically laws took the precedence over anything international. That's why these constitutions have been absolutely abhorred by the political elites in the West, and Russia is a sovereign state. And the question is not just Russia makes truckload of money, which she does. I mean, no matter how West tries to do it and limit Russia's profits from selling oil, but also Russia is basically, it's difficult to even convey what is Russian GDP and how it forms and how it relates to the GDPs of, for example, European Union, where each of the European country is dramatically smaller economically than Russia, of course. Even Germany. Germany is dramatically smaller economic-wise than Russia. But, and so even Mr. Doran, who, yeah, I don't want to go there with his competencies, or rather lack thereof, they have to admit that this price cap, which EU decided as the $60 per barrel, is going to be a debacle for the West. And remarkably, he is correct. He is correct for all the wrong reasons, but still, he is correct here. And this is what has to be understood again. And while they say that Russia hinted, or again, Russia didn't hint. Russia is on a record about this price cap non-stop since the very moment this idea was floated around by whoever, those people with Mr. Purple, Matt Purple talks about, the people who cannot reset the wall outlet, because they cannot. And here's what Mr. Novak, the deputy minister, Deputy Prime Minister, who is in charge of the whole energy sector of Russia. Believe me, it is an extremely powerful man, and the man who, when he speaks, the whole world listens. And this is what Mr. Novak stated yesterday. And look at this. And RT gives it the title that Russia doubles down on oil price warning. Here's what he says. We will sell oil and oil products only to countries that will work with us on market conditions. Even if we would have to lower production, he said, on the Russia 24 TV channel on Sunday. Think about it. Russia will be dealing with the countries who probably will make offers, not probably, India is already on record that she's buying Russian oil no matter what. And so in this particular case, I can basically encapsulate what Russia was on record since the moment this stupid, I mean, economically it's idiotic idea was floated out, that basically if Europe wants to, it will live without Russian oil, and it will. Rather not leave. It's obviously a little bit incorrect. It's gonna be trying to survive, and I don't think so. It's gonna last for a long time. But hey, as I already stated, the rationality is not the part of the European polity today. And basically, when you look at them and you see that people want to commit suicide, hey, let them. So what can I say? And many people, again, wrongly. Some people who write in my discussion boards, for example, on YouTube, they wrongly accuse me of having a Schadenfreude. I don't have Schadenfreude in terms of, having sympathy actually to the European people. But again, we all bear responsibility for our decisions. And while I definitely empathize, I'm terrified by the idea that thousands of, especially old people, will die from cold, for example, in the United Kingdom. It's horrible. My heart breaks because of that. But again, you have to understand that people bear responsibility for their decisions. And as I already stated, I don't buy this excuse anymore that, oh my God, we have been manipulated. Well, too bad. Too bad if you were manipulated. You have to know better. If you don't, yeah, the tragedy strikes. And that's what happens to Europe. And so Europe, as I already stated, I don't think so Europe has any chance of resisting the United States, it will be nilled. Actually, it is being nilled as we speak, and eventually its economy will be destroyed. So, and this is what is happening. And then obviously it's not just the fact of the, for example, some obviously Russophobic guy, writing about this, but obviously the whole situation in terms of economy and in terms of those giftless, stupid elites. Well, let me show you something which Time magazine offers, for our menu, so to speak. Here's another guy, Joseph Yoffe. I will tell you who he is, but look at this, what he writes. Putin must not win, but Zelensky must not win too much. So Mr. Yoffe, speaking and writing for the Time magazine, he says that in the first place of the war, Russians made it to the outskirts of Kiev, and he continues to basically with this narrative from Kiev and MI6, which is complete bullshit, evidently having no idea what was the those movements designed for and how they developed basically the conflict, but he evidently begins to suspect that, yeah, you know what, he better start talking. He's talking about Zelensky. The reason he wants Zelensky to start talking is not because he cares about the Ukraine or Russians, it's because they are now genuinely afraid of basically Russian victory, which is coming. Russia is already basically in this mode, but this is difficult to explain for the person who is Mr. Joseph Yoffe, who obviously is I understand being absolutely ignorant guy. Here he is. He's the friend of Mr. Brzezinski. He's the guy. He's actually German. He's supposedly some academician with degree in government. So in other words, the guy has no clue, has never had actually Mr. Brzezinski and the cabal of these so-called scholars about anything in the world, be that real economy, military, technology, engineering. So, and this is the guy who offers his solutions. They are idiotic, and the only reason that he offers these solutions, quote unquote, is to by any means to freeze the conflict, because they know what is coming, and we know the actual size of the or scale of Ukrainian losses, and the fact that Bakhmut is coming, and they know what fall of Bakhmut means, because it's the whole main railroad and transport node, so to speak, will be basically cut off for Ukraine, and after that, you pretty much can imagine what is going on there. There will be another massive annihilation of the Ukrainian force, which will be completely cut off from the supplies. And what can I say? They know this. I mean, somebody told them, somebody who has actual degree and has actual expertise in, for example, military affairs. And so they begin to panic, because they know that, yes, Macron states, Scholz states, Biden states that Russia shouldn't be allowed to win in the battlefield. I don't know, judging by the scale of annihilation of the armed forces of Ukraine and foreign mercenaries, my gosh, that certainly looks like winning to me. But again, you cannot explain this for some lowlife from American or Western European media, let alone through some imbeciles who basically made their careers of selling bullshit about just about anything. So, and this is what he is trying to say, Mr. Yoffe, because obviously he is very afraid of what is coming. But even people who are supposedly well-meaning, you know what, you can take a look at Mr. Van Buren from the American Conservative, who also wants to kind of, stop this conflict, and Peter Van Buren, he served for 24 years in the State Department, and evidently for some reason he thinks that he is competent on the issues of the warfare. I don't think so he is. And look what he writes. And again, this is happening today, yesterday, and people are beginning to worry. Even those people who position themselves as so-called realists, and Peter Van Buren is certainly qualifies, so to speak. And he writes, the current status of war, this 20th century World War I style conquering of territory by creeping land advances with 21st century weaponry cannot continue indefinitely. Both sides will run out of young men to kill. And here we have even, I mean, this repetition of the thing, you know. I don't know what's the deal with the mathematics in America. I mean, you know what? I know the way that math is taught in public schools is dismal. It's dismal. It's absolutely, it's the third world level. But evidently for Mr. Van Buren, who thinks that the 1 to 10 ratio and that Russia will run out of men, no, I mean, how can you? Will Russia run out of Ukrainian men to kill? Well, I have the news for Mr. Van Buren and those who still think about the war as a Hollywood movie. The basic main objective of the war is the annihilation, physical annihilation of the manpower and hardware of the enemy. And Russia have been doing this extremely well. So with a very little losses, there are some losses, obviously. The Russians sustain losses. Even this attack on airfield in, for example, Engels in Saratov, the three servicemen have been killed by the falling debris. But point is that there is this understanding and there is this tangible fear and desperation in order for West trying to convince Zelensky to start negotiating. And the point is, I don't think so Russia is interested in negotiating at all, because obviously, as already have been stated not for once, the question at this stage is the annihilation of the neo-Nazi regime in Kiev, and as number of the respectable and true professional military analysts from the United States, be that Scott Ritter, let alone Colonel McGregor, they say openly, the question now is the basically death of a nation, demolition of the Ukraine as the country. And I have to agree with them. This is what it is. This is war, guys. This is a serious war. And when people begin, those people especially who have appropriate background, begin to talk about the scales, ratios, numbers, everything becomes pretty clear. And that is what happening today around basically combat operations in Ukraine. And as I already stated, Colonel McGregor leans towards the Russian massive assault comes the mid of December with the ground being frozen first. It's not as crucial. It's important, definitely it's important, but it's not as crucial. Russian tanks can navigate actually pretty much very nasty dirt. But the point is that Russia may continue to just, you know, not going to the offensive as it planned, but continue to the physical annihilation of those young men which are destined to kill by the Kiev regime. And so in this case, yeah, we're looking at the horrendous numbers. Depending on the different estimates, even when von der Leyen gives you the number, which is terrifying, but truth is, and again, I refer you to people with the military background in the United States. If you don't believe me, we're looking at probably 250,000 KIAs, maybe 500,000 at least wounded. So we're looking at about, well, catastrophic losses, which cannot be actually addressed anymore. And this is what happens. Now, but as I always say, always look at the picture around, always look at the surroundings of the geopolitical situation, and always look at many factors, including, of course, the battlefield factors, which affect the decision-making or rather lack thereof, because those people, as I already stated, they cannot make any normal decisions, be them in Washington, in Brussels, or in Paris. But those things, they do make basically and create this resultant force, which forces those people to react. Obviously, they react wrongly, but they react nonetheless. And here it is. One of the most important things which have been kind of, you know, missed under the radar, here it is. As you can see yourself, the RIA-FAN, it's a federal news agency, already on the September 19 this year, already spoke to the Lieutenant General Leonid Reshetnikov, who commented on the basically $7 billion. It's the preliminary figure of the contract for the military hardware between Russia and Algeria. And Mr. Reshetnikov, he says, yeah, they love our weapons. They really love it. And that is why they want to buy so much. In fact, these different estimates put it between $7 and $12 billion. And obviously, that was news. Obviously, those news haven't been reported properly in the West, although they have been reported, but as usually somewhere in the cellar of the newspapers on the back pages. But look at this. At least Warsaw Institute and already on the 5 days ago, on the 30th of November, writes this. Russia-Algeria forged close military partnership, and Algeria is forging ever-growing military ties with Russia through joint military drills and substantial arms supply deals. After that, Warsaw Institute, which is definitely working as a monitor of Russia, states this. Not only they describe the number of the activities which is Russia and Algeria do together, and of course Algeria being a pivotal country, extremely important country in the North Africa, they estimate that worth basically that plan to secure a huge contract with Russia by the basically president of Algeria. That is worth even more, 12 to 17 billion in the next 10 years. Algerian officers are especially keen to acquire submarines, Su-57 stealth aircraft, Su-34 bombers, and the Su-30 fighters, which, by the way, Algeria has quite a few of them. Algeria also hopes to acquire new air defense systems such as the S-400. This military transfer has made Algeria the third largest recipient of Russian arms in the world. So once the president of Algeria visits Moscow this December, I didn't see the schedule, pretty sometime soon, the contract will be signed, and there is also, I don't know what this Military Watch thing magazine is. I do not trust any kind of the resource which doesn't even provide the names of people who are behind it. But there are rumors now that indeed Algeria wants Su-57. I don't think so they will get it this time. Russia builds them primarily now for themselves. But even S-500, also kind of, maybe not today, or not in the nearest couple, 3 years. But yes, we can obviously expect the Su-57s and S-500s appearing in Algeria, and obviously there is a lot of interest in the submarines. And Algerian National Navy operates 6 Russian Kilo-class, Project 877 and Project 636 submarines. The number of the contracts, or rather the volume of the contract, is astonishing. It's a huge contract, of course. And that is creating some, obviously, stir in Washington and in the West. And especially it is interesting against the complaints and scandal between France and Germany, when Mr. Macron now complains that Mr. Scholz didn't buy French Rafales and decided to buy American F-35. Mr. Macron should be thankful that he is not buying F-35, because France, as is Germany, is a lapdog, and fact is, Rafale is already becoming, well, not obsolete, it's a good plane, but in terms of development of the modern fighters, I don't think so there is much there which competes with what Russians are already offering on export, including Su-57. Another matter, it's just a matter of deliveries when Su-57 will be delivered. So, but we have this Algeria-Russian contract, which is horrendously huge, and that speaks volumes, because people observe what is happening in Ukraine now, and unlike the military and media propagandists from Washington or Brussels or Paris or Berlin, those people who studied real war, I'll give you a hint, number of Algerian officers actually graduated my Naval Academy, is the fact that obviously they understand what real war is, and they study it the way it is supposed to be studied, not from the Hollywood or CNN videos, but based on the statistics, mathematics, and proper operational conclusions. And they love what they have, especially Russian air defense. So, and this factor of this gigantic contract, and this is not the only contract Russia has, obviously. India is another huge recipient of Russian weaponry, and of course we're now talking about Iran. So this creates a little bit of stir in Washington, because obviously increasingly the only thing which Washington will be able, large items to offer, is of course F-35. And we all know the story of F-35, right? So I don't have to elaborate on this anymore. So, and this is what I needed to talk to you about today, and point out to the fact that very many, even outright and, visceral Russophobes, understand the sheer idiocy of the oil price cap. Russia is unequivocal, explicit, and doubled down, as RT reported, that we don't care. They can impose whatever price caps. Anybody who imposes price cap on Russian oil loses Russian supplies, and that spells catastrophe for energy sector in Europe. So, but Europe chose its own fate in this particular case, and it's the fate of the basically doormat for the United States, which themselves are not doing that well, but at least the United States has independent energy policy. Granted, even, perverted by the green agenda, but still, United States has energy. Europe doesn't. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, and as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, support me on Patreon, and you know what, have a nice week ahead of you, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.